It is the origin of nightmares. Written and performed by Tony Capobianco. Have you ever had a nightmare that was so scary that you slept with the lights on? Have you ever had vivid, recurring nightmares? Have you ever been afraid to go to sleep at night? I have. Folklore from various cultures around the world and across time offer explanations for where nightmares and night terrors come from. Though the names and the physical appearances of the creatures responsible for these frightful phenomena may vary, the lore generally agrees that they are a type of supernatural being or spirit. In Germanic folklore, the Mare is the name of the malevolent spirit that is said to sit on and ride a person while giving them nightmares when they go to bed. In fact, the terrifying spirit is where the mare, in nightmare, comes from. In ancient Greece, a daimon named Epiales caused nightmares. In ancient Persia, nightmares were attributed to Dives. In some of the lore from the Christian world, nightmares and sleep paralysis were blamed on witches and on the souls of women who were to be damned. Whether human, goblin, or demon, supernatural powers and abilities were at the root of all these legends. Although science now offers physiological and psychological explanations for nightmares and sleep paralysis, could it be that there really is a supernatural source behind these frightful events? What if the varying folklore around nightmares are based on one real, terrifying, sinister, inhuman spirit? After a series of horrific nightmares over several years, I searched for help. The nightmares were so awful and potent that they'd wake me up and make it impossible for me to return to sleep. The fear and despair from the terrifying dreams were so intense that the dreadful feelings lingered around me like a fog even long after I had awakened. The unmistakable sense of an evil presence in the room with me accompanied the negative emotions which haunted me. Night after night, I would go to bed, and then the evil dreams began. In the nightmare, I felt a most sinister presence. It was the presence of pure evil. The evil presence is not to be mistaken for fear. While fear was involved, it was not alone. There was something else, something distinctly more than fear at work. The feeling was like a heavy, unnatural, and ill-intentioned smoke that smothered me. Once the malevolent presence joined with and made the fear become more acute, it showed itself. In my bed, with my eyes closed, I suddenly felt compelled to turn my head toward where the evil presence was strongest. Then I opened my eyes, and I saw it. The most horrific demon materialized before my eyes at the side of my bed. The monstrous spirit was semi-ethereal, with horns on its ferocious beast-like head. Its fierce, red glowing eyes glared at me as its open mouth revealed large, pointy teeth. The demon had two enormous bat-like wings which stretched from one side of the room to the other. The hideous figure appeared to be 7 feet tall as it hovered above the floor. The thing was so grotesque that I felt sickened at the sight of it. Absolute fear drowned me. A storm surge of unbridled evil engulfed me in the most awful darkness. Paralyzed, I couldn't even wiggle my toes. As desperate as I was to sit up and get out of that room, I couldn't move. My mind screamed for me to at least turn on the light, but even that simple task was an impossibility. The evil entity stared at me as I remained motionless and powerless. It seemed to gain a sadistic satisfaction from tormenting me. The whole event seemed to go on and on for what felt like an eternity. Finally, I was able to jump out of bed and turn on the light. Once the light was on, the demonic figure vanished. The evil presence remained for a while, but at least I no longer saw it. Just as the feeling of evil began to dissipate and some relief at long last started to set in, I woke up and found myself in bed. It was a nightmare. My room was dark and I couldn't see much. My stomach sank as I once again felt the evil presence. Wanting to turn on the light, I discovered that I couldn't move. It was happening again. I turned my head and saw the same sinister spirit levitating at my bedside. The entire dreadful experience played out again. Once more, when I finally became able to move and turn on the light, the whole damn sequence painfully played out yet another horrific time. It was a nightmare within a nightmare within a nightmare. The terrifying ordeal was exhausting. The nightmares were ultra-vivid and hyper-real. That specific nightmare wasn't a one-time occurrence. It was a recurring nightmare that I suffered through numerous times over the years. Worse still, the frequency of that particular nightmare increased to the point where I was having it nearly every night. The human body needs a certain amount of sleep, and I wasn't getting it. The plague of nightmares was leaving me utterly exhausted. It had become increasingly difficult to function at work. My mood and personality had also been rapidly deteriorating. The lack of sleep had made me irritable and prone to losing my temper over the littlest things. Lifelong friendships were also paying a heavy price. Afraid to lose my friends and my job, I feverishly searched for answers. Scrolling through hundreds of search results on my internet browser, I tried to make sense of what was going on. From sleep institutes, I learned that there was a great deal of science behind nightmares, sleep terrors, and sleep paralysis. Apparently, around 4% of the population suffers from chronic nightmares. Doctors and sleep specialists recommended reducing stress, practicing imagery rehearsal therapy, and sound therapy. Sound therapy seemed promising because it had helped a lot of people overcome their battle with nightmares. I eagerly sought out the specific sound frequency to play while I slept and combined it with imagery rehearsal therapy. I tried this combination for several weeks, but it failed miserably. If anything, my nightmares had gotten even more severe. After being plagued by this hellish nightmare yet again, I woke up to discover something horrifying and astonishing. When I went through my typical morning routine, I gasped in terror as I looked at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. To my amazement, my long blonde hair, which reached my jawline, had several braids. I have never worn braids in my life, and I most certainly hadn't braided my hair the previous night. Not only had I not put the braids in my hair, but I was a guy who didn't even know how to braid hair. I was totally shocked. Had some deranged person broken into my home and for some inconceivable reason decided to play with my hair as I slept? Was this somehow related to my nightmare swarms? Freezing chills swept down my body. Determined to finally get to the bottom of this, I scoured the internet. For days on end, I devoured innumerable stories about creatures, witches, deities, and demons that purportedly caused nightmares. I was amazed to learn that the folklore on the subject stretched around the globe and all the way back to ancient times. As I read about the Mare of Germanic folklore, my jaw dropped onto my lap. I came across the word marflator, which was a Swedish word that translates to mare braids. People of Germany and Sweden had believed that the mare would sometimes put the hair of a horse or a human in its foul mouth to dampen it, and then the creature would braid the hair. My hair stood on end as I read accounts of the mare sitting on a sleeping person's chest. It was said that the mare rode the person at night and gave the victim terrible nightmares. The reports noted that the victims were often paralyzed by the mare, as it supernaturally oppressed its target. While I had researched more so-called rational and scientific explanations for this phenomenon, nothing could account for the increased strangeness that followed. Doctors and sleep experts confidently asserted that the accounts of the mare in folklore were adequately explained by sleep paralysis. According to doctors and sleep therapists, sleep paralysis is a natural biological phenomenon that occurs when the brain suddenly wakes up during the REM phase of the sleep cycle. When the person awakens abruptly during that phase, the body remains paralyzed due to chemicals that are produced to protect itself by preventing the person from acting out the events experienced in a dream. The medical explanation for sleep paralysis seemed to be a reasonable one, but it did not explain how my hair had ended up braided. I slept alone, and I always locked my windows and doors. While it was possible that a mentally ill individual could have snuck into my home and braided my hair as I slept, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to it. At that point, I wasn't sure which scenario was more terrifying. Was it scarier if a crazed person had broken into my home and messed with me as I slept? Or was it scarier if something unknown and even stranger had taken place? In order to get some concrete answers, I set up a home security system that included sensors on windows and doors, as well as security cameras on every entrance door to the house. If someone were to break into my house, I would know about it. Tired, frustrated, angry, and depressed, I was at my wits' end. Perhaps I would have simply stopped there with the installation of the home security system and accepted that there was nothing more that could be done if things had stayed the same. However, things didn't remain the same. They got worse. Much worse. One night, during the recurring nightmare, the evil demonic spirit didn't just stare at me from my bedside. It slowly hovered over me and then bit my stomach. The pain from the bite was intense. When I had awakened from the nightmare within the nightmare within the nightmare, to my absolute horror, I found that I was bleeding from my stomach. After taking a closer look, it became clear that I had been bitten by a creature with a large mouth. The bite mark was undeniable proof that these nightmares were more than just the physiological activity of the brain. I wasn't going insane. Someone or something had indeed bitten me while I slept. Terrified by this unexpected escalation, I immediately checked to see if any of my windows had been shattered. I found nothing. Each and every window and door remained locked. No alarms had been set off overnight. Similarly, my security cameras had not captured any nocturnal intruder. There was zero indication that anyone had broken into my house. Yet something had happened. The bite mark on my belly didn't just appear by itself, and I certainly hadn't bitten myself. It wasn't even something that I could have done to myself in my sleep. I'm incapable of reaching my stomach with my mouth, and what's more is that the mouth that had left its mark was far larger than any human mouth that I had ever seen. The bite looked like it had been delivered by a massive beast. Struggling to make some kind of sense of what was happening to me, I recalled some videos that I had watched on YouTube. There was a scholarly channel that focused on esoteric and occult beliefs and practices. The host of the channel was an intelligent and beautiful young woman, Dr. Angela Noose. Desperate for help, I sent Dr. Noose a message. I wrote to her and explained my dire situation. I offered to produce pictures to document the bizarre braids in my hair, as well as the inexplicable bite mark if she wanted some form of verification of my story. To my pleasant surprise, Dr. Angela Noose responded to my message and asked me to leave my phone number so that she could contact me to hear my story. She also requested that I send her my photos that documented my strange case. The following day, my phone rang. I answered the phone. Hello? The familiar female voice on the other end replied. Yes, hello there. This is Dr. Angela Noose. You had reached out to me recently regarding some rather extraordinary experiences that you have had. Am I speaking with Bill Sledge? Yes, ma'am. This is he, I answered. Good. Hi, Bill. Thanks for reaching out to me. It sounds like you've been going through a really difficult time. Well, Doctor, that is the understatement of the year, I replied with a nervous laugh. I suppose you're right. You can call me Angela. Okay, thanks. It's nice to meet you, Angela. I'm so grateful that you got back to me. I've sought answers from sleep specialists, I've researched psychological explanations, and I've installed a security system, and I didn't know what else I could do. I've tried imagery rehearsal and sound therapies to aid my sleep, and nothing has worked. In fact, every time I try to resolve the situation or find answers about what's going on with me, things get worse rather than better. I wondered if I was losing my mind, up until the point that I found the unexplained bite marks on my belly. Yes, your situation sounds like it's remarkable. The pictures that you sent me were quite edifying. I don't think that you're crazy, Mr. Sledge. Please, call me Bill. Mr. Sledge sounds like someone that's my grandfather's age. Good. At least you don't think that I'm insane. I mean, I know how crazy this all sounds. When I speak my story out loud, it sounds even crazier still. I understand, Bill. Extraordinary events can seem irrational, but there are those of us who believe that the world is far more interesting and vast than the mere matter that we observe with our eyes. Some people, not only in the mainstream religions, believe that there is a spirit world that is every bit as real as the material world. The two worlds of the physical and spiritual often overlap each other. Some believe that the two worlds exist in the same space but in different dimensions. In the ancient esoteric spiritualities, it is believed that there are spiritual entities that can travel between and act upon both the physical and the spiritual realms. Pardon my interruption, Angela, but are you suggesting that a ghost might be the cause of my nightmares? No, not exactly. Throughout human history, people have documented reports of what we now call sleep paralysis. Various cultures, including the most ancient, believed that spirits caused nightmares. Based on the message that you had written me, I know that you are familiar with the Mare of Germanic folklore. Yes, Angela. I have read a lot of what's available online about the Mare. Bill, there is a lot of interesting and solid information about the Mare online, but the Mare is a relatively recent explanation of a far more ancient phenomenon. I have learned of a far more ancient account of a similar nocturnal spirit. The spirit dates back to the earliest recorded human writings. Some modern spiritual masters in the esoteric and hermetic arts believe that a particular sleep daimon is responsible for reports of sleep disturbances. They think that this old, inhuman spirit is basically a spiritual shapeshifter. These occult experts suspect that the malevolent spirit or daimon can and has taken on the appearance of a goblin, an old hag, marginalized women, fairies, aliens, and horned devils. The name of this ancient evil spirit is Malmortor. Its name more or less translates to evil deathbringer. It is the origin of nightmares. Chills ran down my spine and my blood turned into ice when I heard Angela speak the name. Malmortor. What a terrible name. At the pronunciation of that name, it felt like a shadow of the evil presence had manifested in the room with me. Dr. Angela Noose continued. Malmortor is a powerful and extremely evil spirit of nightmares, sleep paralysis, mental illness, and death. It is an evil, inhuman entity that feeds on suffering, pain, torment, fear, depression, and all negative emotions. The more it feeds on a person's negative emotions and pain, the more powerful it becomes in the physical world. This is why people that are unfortunate enough to suffer through recurring and chronic nightmares often note an escalation in the severity of the assaults over time. When the activity becomes like a sinister, supernatural storm surge of evil, the person often becomes severely depressed and isolated. Despair consumes the victim. Hold on, Angela. Am I in danger? This sounds far more serious than I had imagined. I responded as a familiar feeling of fear washed over me like an enormous wave. Bill, if it is Malmortor at work here, then unfortunately, yes, I'm afraid that your situation is dangerous. You see, the braiding of your hair, the bite marks, and the increasing cluster of your nightmares within a nightmare are indicative of someone who has been marked by the demonic spirit. Once Malmortor has marked a person, it means that it has targeted the person. The end goal of this ancient evil spirit is to possess the body of the marked individual, or to drive them into madness, or to kill the person, or possibly to drive the hopeless person to commit suicide. Dear God, I'm freaking out. What can I do? Please, Angela, there has to be something that I can do, I desperately pleaded. Please, Bill. Scaring you is not my goal. Take a deep breath and focus on the simple act of your breathing right now. I did as she said, and surprisingly, the simplicity of being in the moment and recognizing that I was alive and well was very calming. When Angela noted that my breathing had become more tranquil, she continued. As serious as attacks from Malmortor are, he is not omnipotent, and you are not helpless. Now that you know who, or rather, what is stalking you, there are easy actions that I'd like you to take. Are you willing to do what I tell you to? Yes, Angela, of course. Please continue. I'm listening. Okay, good. Malmortor is a sinister spirit that is strongest in the darkness. Light weakens it, and it avoids the light. When the sun sets, make sure to turn on the lights and do not allow them to go out. This is especially important when you go to bed. I implore you to sleep with the lights on. The second thing that I want you to do is to take some salt. Any kind of salt will do. But highly spiritually advanced and attuned esoteric mystics say that sea salt is particularly powerful. Once you have the salt, go to your doors and use the salt to form a circle with an eye in the center. Then use the salt to draw an X within the circle with the eye. Making this symbol in the front of every door that opens to the outside creates a spiritual protection. The sleep demon will be unable to cross the threshold into your home. Next, take the salt and make the same symbol in front of any windows that you have in your bedroom or wherever you sleep. Once that is done, make the same symbol under your bed. Finally, have your first good and safe night of sleep. I did exactly as Dr. Angela Noose said, and it worked. For the very first time in years, I was able to sleep peacefully without any nightmares. Mal Mortor only returned one night, and that was because I had had a few too many drinks and slept at a friend's house. That particular night, I hadn't made the eye in a circle with an X in it with salt, nor had I slept with the lights on. The nightmare within the nightmare returned that dreadful evening. When I woke up, I had also found a scratch on my chest, which read, "I'm still here." Nevertheless, so long as I implemented Dr. Angela's advice, I wasn't troubled by the ancient evil spirit. My friendships were healed, and my job had become secure after my life returned to normal. I kept in contact with Angela Noose, and I have come to call her a friend. She told me that if Mal Mortor did find a way to get to me again, that she knew esoteric mystical masters that could take more complicated steps to help me. Thankfully, that hasn't been necessary. I sometimes wonder what my fate would have been had I not reached out to Dr. Angela. Had I not come across her videos, my life would almost certainly still be a nightmare, or perhaps I wouldn't even be alive at all. One thing is certain, I'll never sleep in the dark again. Sometimes the darkness isn't empty. If you're listening to this and you're plagued by recurrent nightmares, don't turn off the lights. No matter what you do, make sure that you sleep with the lights on. I hope that you enjoyed your stay here at the Haunted Half Moon Inn. The Master requests that you consider supporting me and the inn by becoming a a patron of mine on Patreon. The Half Moon Inn needs your support to keep the doors open. You wouldn't want the residents here to feel forgotten and abandoned, would you? Creating quality scary stories to share with you is very important to me. Running this inn of horror is a passion of mine, and I would truly appreciate your support. The world is hurting. It needs more horror. Help me to heal the world through horror. Together, with your help, we could haunt this world one home at a time. Until next time, always remember, just because you don't see them doesn't mean that they aren't there.